Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks put out this tweet. My wife used to work at Monterey Park where the mass shooting took place. No one is safe. Republicans are constantly spreading fear about immigrants, crime, and drag queens. But the number one thing that makes us and our children unsafe is their favorite thing in the world, guns. You know what stood out to me with this tweet was the no one is safe and then criticizing Republicans for fear mongering, for constantly spreading fear. And I'm just like, my friend, Cenk, I mean, you're kind of doing the same thing, all right? Look, let's try and be reasonable people. In a large urban setting, it can be scary if everybody's armed and not trained properly. But you know what? They have a right to keep and bear arms. You may disagree. I respect your opinion, your right to have it. I disagree with your opinion. And if you want people to not have the right to keep and bear arms, you must amend the Constitution. And that requires a lot of people in this country agreeing. But what I find really fascinating is how wrong he is. Guns are the things making us unsafe? That's not true. It's just fundamentally not true. Notably because California is the Democrat anti-gun bastion of gun control. And this is where a mass shooting took place. Chicago, also one of these places. I can't remember which state it was, but I remember reading about there's a certain jurisdiction. It might have been like Wisconsin or Michigan. They banned guns to like a certain, they did some kind of like weapons ban, and then crime skyrocketed. And they're like, quick, repeal the weapons ban. Crime is getting worse. It's like, hey, think about this for a second. Here's what happens. I'll give you a scenario, and then we'll read the stats where they say, Cenk is basically wrong about this. Well, let's actually we'll pull up some of the stats, and then we'll talk about guns and crime and all that stuff. We have this from Nuance Bro. He says, California ranks the top of states that gun control organizations list as the most ideal. I find that truly fascinating. Here's everytownresearch.org. California is the best. Then New York, Hawaii, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Illinois, and Maryland. Maryland is 8? Get out of here. Maryland's garbage. Maryland is not like, it's funny. They're like national leaders, Maryland. Maryland should be higher on that list. Maryland's one of the worst. But what's funny is these states, these are like the worst for your rights. Now, what makes us unsafe? I'll tell you. Having grown up in Chicago, I never thought guns were the problem. You couldn't have them. Criminals somehow still did. We never understood it. Everyone in Chicago was walking around and they'd see a guy pull out a gun and they'd be like, but how is this possible? Reality was ripping apart right before our eyes. Guns are illegal. People couldn't have them. But somehow, some way, these gangbangers would rip through the fabric of reality and manifest a gun despite the fact the law said they couldn't have one. One night crawling with some friends. That's when you listen to the police scanner and then drive around. Man, in one night, like 5 dead people. It's crazy. One story I told is like they shot up the front of a house because it was like a drug deal gone bad and they killed the wrong people or something like that. Look, we know where they get their guns from illegally. They get people in Indiana who are residents who can buy because the laws are more lax. Then they drive down the street. Somebody, or they drive into Illinois illegally, and then someone takes all the guns, and boom, now you got quote unquote illegal guns in Illinois. I don't think it's fair to call them illegal guns. Unconstitutionally, legislated or sanctioned weapons, because the Constitution says right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, right? But we know what they do. They bring the guns in, and then it's very, very obvious to anybody who knows anything about anything. If you're walking down the street and you don't have a gun, and it's illegal to have a gun, and you're not breaking the law, the guy who is willing to risk going to prison for a very long time thinks about it and says, if I approach this person unarmed and say, give me your money, what happens? They run, I get nothing. They fight me, I get subdued, I go to prison, I go to jail. Okay. This guy's thinking now, if he's going to risk jail, he might as well minimize his risk. It's a wager. It really is for these guys. They approach you with no weapon. I've had it happen to me and say, they do this trick where they're like, hey, let me have the money you have on you. Let me have that money. Because they try to make the argument that they were begging and not mugging. But if they don't have a weapon, The police tell you when someone comes and demands money, just give it up. Just give it up. So here's what happens. You're walking on the street. Some guy says, hey, man, let me get the money that you got. Let me get the money that you have. And then they go, yeah. And they pull out their wallet and hand him cash. And he goes, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And then when that person reports a mugging, you'd be like, I asked him for money. I was begging. I'm panhandling, man. I didn't threaten him. No weapons on you. No threats. There you go. Not a mugging. It doesn't always work. They might be like, nice try, buddy. But this guy might be thinking, if I can't get the money, if this person doesn't give in, I lose everything. So let's talk about mitigated risk. If you threaten someone, if you say, do it or else what? Now you committed a crime. Are you going to actually be able to get that money off that person? This is why they have guns, because they hold the gun and they say, give me your money. I mean, these people are nuts. They pointed at you, finger on the trigger and say, give me your money, give me your money. You take it, man. Because they're thinking this. They're not going to get caught. They never get caught. You're going to comply instantly with a gun in your face. And they know you don't have any way to defend yourself. But I've seen the videos out of Brazil. I've seen the videos where some guy walks in, or we had that one recently in Texas, waving a gun around, and then some dude, boom, shoots the guy, threatening someone else's life. And that's the reality of crime in California and New York and Illinois. Isn't it funny that the places with some of the highest crime, Baltimore, they're the national leaders on gun control. You kidding me? New York crime skyrocketing. California just had that mass shooting. Tons of crime and homelessness and drug abuse. Hawaii, okay, I think Hawaii might be the exception here. Isolated island, kind of hard to get to, not so sure. New Jersey, don't even get me started on Jersey, man. There's a reason nobody wants to live there. Connecticut I find interesting too. Connecticut's a bunch of uppity rich people, so they get a pass. Massachusetts does have some crime, but Illinois, Maryland, I mean, you look at this list and you got all the worst crime. Illinois and Maryland, that one's fascinating. You got Chicago and Baltimore, two of the worst cities in the country for violent crime, and they say that is a good thing. Ranking state gun laws, California, look at that. Where's Maryland's number 7? People out here, they call Maryland one of the evil 7. That's what they call it. Why would rural Indiana do this? That's right. No one is crime. The favorite thing in the world, guns. It's just funny to me that these people don't pay attention to the laws around them. There's seemingly no logic, and that explains so much about modern politics. I mean, come on. We're talking 2 + 2 = 4. If people who obey the law don't have guns and people who break the law don't care about breaking the law, how does the law stop them from having guns and then shooting you? And on top of that, we'll throw it back to our good friend Cenk Uygur's tweet itself. No one is safe because of guns. They're fear-mongering about people. You know what I'm not scared of? A gun. I'm not scared. I got a bunch. I got guns and gun saves. I've got guns ready to go. I got a gun not too far away from where I'm sitting. And not doing anything. Just sitting there. You know what I am scared of? Bad people. I talk about this all the time. I'm not scared of Antifa because I can predict what they'll do and I can protect against it. I'm scared of the crackpot crazy person who thinks I stole all of his spoons and put him on the moon. As I often say. The gun ain't do nothing. Gun's sitting over there, just sitting there. Not going to get up, not going to move around, not going to just levitate in the air and then load itself. Not going to happen. A person could walk past my gun, pick up a guitar off the wall and start bashing people with it. It's the person. Now hold on there a minute. If I'm holding the gun and the person grabs the guitar off the wall to swing it and I have a gun, guess what? They won't. It's possible they're insane people, because that happens too. It's unfortunate. Crazy people do crazy things. But this is the reality of the world, man. Being an armed society is a polite society. But I'm not going to come here and just lie and whisper sweet nothings in your ears. If everybody had a gun, there would be more accidental gun discharges. There'd be more accidental death. That's a reality. But I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. I prefer the right to defend myself from a crackpot who wants to come at me. In my previous segment, I talked about that lady at the gym. I'll say this. If you're a lady and you're worried about creepos coming up on you, buy a gun. Legally, of course. And then if you feel threatened, you can pull your gun out and say, this, the great equalizer, will make sure you don't touch me. No creepo is going to lay their hands on you when you can end them if they try to end you. We don't want violence. I certainly don't. But I don't think it is incumbent on the victims. So I'm not here to fearmonger about immigrants or drag queens or anything like that. Crime is bad. I'll talk about crime being bad. And then you blame the guns for it? Bro, in Chicago, you can get mugged with a rock. You can get mugged with a fist. It's ridiculous. Anyway, shout out. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up in a few minutes. Stick around and I'll see you all shortly.